All right, so we're a few days away from, we're going to call this the Maple Double. I have no idea. Anyway, so if you don't know, the women play at 1 p.m. Eastern. The men play at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on the 11th. And I will be watching both games. But we're going to talk about the men here. And the concept is players who have something to prove here. Players who can gain something, players who maybe can lose something. I'm not going to go through the whole list of players because I feel like there's interesting. I'll kind of talk generally categories and put people. You tell me comments who has something to gain, who has something to lose, who are you curious for, kind of go. But I think interestingly, just looking at the depth, I just listened to Northern Football Podcast. They brought this up. And it's something that if you watched the Qatar Uruguay lineup that they brought in, they're very light on the left-hand side. Now, granted, you can do that because you can potentially put Davies back there as a left back or as a wing back and then play another winger / forward up there, whether you want to put Laren on the left, whether you want to put a Corbianu or Liam Miller type player there. But with that being the case, you only have one left back, which is Sam Adekugbe, and I think this matters a lot. Something to gain. Raheem Edwards, and to an extent, Jacob Shaffleburg. Those two players have probably the best chance to do something, to maybe push the envelope to get their players, their names onto the final 26. Because again, on the left side, you don't have as much depth on the right side. You had Alistair Johnson, you have Richard Larea, you have Tajon Buchanan technically, who can come and play a little deeper if need be. You have other wingers and wingbacks on that side. You need one more body more than likely. And so between those two, but mainly Raheem Edwards, after a strong MLS season, he has something to definitely prove, to push himself into the squad. No doubt about this. And I think those two will be interesting to watch, kind of how they break down. Shaffleburg definitely had a nice pick up to a season after moving to Nashville. So I think between Shaffleburg and Raheem Edwards, those two players, I think one of them has a chance to really push themselves in and kind of see what they're able to do. Truly. When it comes, who else could really push themselves here? I know that the easy question is, the easy name is, what about a player like, actually, yeah, Daniil Henry. If you look at the center backs, Daniil Henry and Joel Waterman, those two, especially with the Scott Candy injury, those two have a lot to gain. In the same way, I think Waterman has something to lose if he doesn't look good in any team time. I think he ends up getting some playing time here just because you need to see some more center backs. You know what they have in Cornelius. Henry's probably fourth center back off the pitch. Number 4, so first one off the bench between him and those three. It's a solid group, but I think Joel Waterman has a lot to gain and lose here from a standpoint of, do you belong here? We haven't seen training. Training is always a difficult thing to see, so you look at it from there. Those two could really see a potential to really push in. Cava's coming. I'm not really worried about him. Ayo Akinola, still rehabbing. I think it's tough to... It's tough on Ayo right after the year coming back from the injury. I think maybe next year will be a better assessment of a player once he if he's able to regain some of that quickness, that first step burst that he had prior to the injury. But the midfield is interesting here too. You have Kone, you have Mark Anthony Kaye, you have Piet, you have Osorio, then you have Mathieu Choignard. Mathieu Choignard is a player who I think has been on the cusp, but just hasn't got the call up as of yet. And I think that could be interesting to see what he's able to do. But those 3 to 4, if you look at the midfield battles, I think those 3 are looking, because if you look at the midfield outside of that, you have Atiba, you have Eustáquio. Who's the third midfielder coming off? Even Liam Fraser to an extent. Who's the third midfielder coming onto the pitch? It's probably Osorio. Maybe it's a Kone. But I think K and to the extent Osorio have to really perform here. Not that they have to solidify their position. They're on the squad. But in terms of players that are going to look good, get some form, move forward from there, I think that's important for them. So I think when it comes to those guys, they have to put in a good performance. They don't have something to lose per se, but they definitely have something to gain if they look and play well. Who else? And we're not going to make this too long. Goalkeepers, no Maxime Crépeau. Dane, you're number 2 now. Some people already had you at number 2. You ready for that? Now, granted, you're playing Bahrain, so you'll get some tests. But his first start was against Aruba, and I'm not sure if he faced a shot, really. But, Dane, how comfortable are you stepping in these shoes? You were one of the better goalkeepers in the MLS this year, but now you're stepping it up. If something happens to Milan Borjan, Dane's going in. Which, for some people is interesting, but then you've lost your backup keeper, meaning now you're going to go to some untested, unproven players. This is by no means you should have played him. When were you going to play him? Probably a friendly, yes. That would have been a great chance. Maybe during Nations League. Who knows? But you didn't. And this is kind of where you're at. So no excuses. No one is really... When it comes to the other players, on the fringes, I'm not sure if any of them have a chance to really get into the squad. I don't know if a Jaden Nelson is really going to push in. I don't think an Ayo is really going to push in. I'm just looking at other players on this list who were brought in. I'm not sure if they all have the ability to crack the roster, but at the same time, the conversation is, what can they actually do? Because you're looking at players like Lucas McNaughton. I think he gets a little bit of run, but again, Jaden Nelson, nothing much. Liam Fraser, Schwenya. I'm curious. Even as ZBG, Zachary Bro-Gilead, I'm curious to see what he's able to get. Thomas Asal has been brought in to replace Maxime Crépeau, but that means your 3 keepers are Sinclair, Pantemis, you'd assume, and then Hassal, which means probably at the World Cup, your 3 goalkeepers are Borjan, Sinclair, and Pantemis. Which, does the Crépeau injury, does that make John carry an additional goalkeeper? Borjan isn't the most spry player, but does it make you carry a 4th goalkeeper? That is actually a thought, which now that affects roster construction if you do that. Because now you're really 1 injury away from being on your 3rd string. That is very, very interesting. But thoughts. I think this Bahrain game, I don't expect them to dominate. I do expect them to win. But all these players, the starters, the regulars don't have much to prove. But the people I brought up, the left side specifically, right? Raheem Edwards and Shaffleburg. I think those 2 could be fighting for those the taxi squad, so to speak, right? I think Liam Fraser is a name that you forget, but more than likely probably sneaks in too. And then now you're on the bench and you're thinking, do you bring an additional goalkeeper? Do you load up with some more depth? It gets interesting, guys. for this Bahrain roster, I'm going to stop talking now. I've rambled enough, but who do you think has something to gain? Who do you think has something to lose here? Let's talk about this. I think I'm done talking now.